This right here is a gun. This is also a gun. That is a gun. These are a bunch of guns. And this is a knife. Alright, that's a mistake. Anyway, in real life, I wouldn't dare touch any of these. Except maybe the knife. But in video games, they're one of my favourite things ever. They're fun, they feel great, they look amazing, and when you just want to kill 1,000 innocent NPCs, like you do, they're incredibly effective. But sadly enough, when creating your own game, there isn't just a big red button you can press that'll make a fully functioning gun appear. It actually takes quite a bit of effort. So game developers can often spend days, weeks, and sometimes even months creating these killing devices. Now, I don't own a huge game studio, I don't employ hundreds of people, and I don't have a big budget to work with. In fact, it is scaringly close to zero. But I still want to create a game, and I'd like it to have some guns. So the only solution I see is that I need to learn how to make a gun. Alright, so one of the most important parts of a gun is its ability to shoot. Without that, it's not really a gun, is it? It's more like a fancy piece of metal. Now, there are two ways you can make a gun shoot when developing a game. The first method I'm going to call the simulation method. Every time the player clicks the shoot button, we spawn a bullet at the end of the gun. We give it the rotation of the gun, and we tell it to move in that direction until it hits something. Now, this method of simulating a bullet looks really cool, and on paper it's the perfect solution. But in reality, it can often cause some problems, like bullets not detecting a hit and the game running a bit slower. So now we get to the second method, which I call the illusion method. Instead of spawning a bullet each time the gun fires, we draw a line from the edge of the gun to the direction in which it's facing. And this line keeps going until it either hits a wall or an enemy. This is called a raycast. Although this is a faster and more reliable method, it is also a lot more boring, since you can't actually see the bullets you're firing. And because I like to look cool when committing virtual genocide, I decided to go with the first method, which also happens to be the standard for 2D games. Okay, so with that decided, it's time to start working. But before we can do anything, we need some temporary art to act as a placeholder. And with a couple squares and a single circle, this wasn't too difficult. It looks neither realistic nor good, but it's more than enough for what we need. Because now we can start programming. I started by adding a simple movement script to the gun, giving us the ability to move the gun around using the WASD keys. But moving around isn't really the most important part, aiming is. So after about 15 minutes of coding and about an hour of staring at Stack Overflow pages, we now have a gun that can rotate 360 degrees, pointing at the cursor. Although I forgot to actually record the cursor in literally every clip, so just imagine the gun is actually pointing in the right direction. But anyway, even though the gun may be rotating correctly, it doesn't look like it when pointing left. So I wrote some code that makes the gun flip whenever it hits 90 degrees. And that makes it look so much better. Okay, the gun itself is done, and it's time for the main event, the bullets. And I gotta say, it didn't take me as long as I thought it would. Although please don't look at my browser, I'm pretty sure I've got more than 47 different tabs open right now, all about mouse position and rotation and stuff like that. It was awful. But since we already talked about how this works quite a bit, and I explained exactly how I'm doing it, I don't think we need to go into this much further. So at this point in development, I got into a zombie killing phase. And I don't mean I picked up a bat, walked outside and started hitting the dead. I mean I created a really ugly zombie, made it move towards the player and made the bullets hurt it. Which all sounds good in theory. Making some targets to show that the bullets can actually do something is not the worst thing in the world. And it wouldn't have been a problem at all if it didn't take me 4 hours to learn how to make one object follow another. But at least I decided to completely trash the whole zombie idea and never come back to it. So time well spent. That was sarcastic, by the way. Anyway, with the zombies gone, it was time to start working on some actual good art. Since I knew I wanted this gun to be an AK-47, it was relatively easy to give some shape to it, and as soon as I saw the finished outline, I knew I was on the right path, and it was time to give it some colour. I decided to go with a reddish brown for the wood on the handles, a greyish black for the ammo case, and a light grey for the actual gun. And I gotta say, texturing this was quite a bit of a challenge, since I didn't want to use any shading in the design, because the gun would be rotating in all sorts of different directions, and that would look really wrong with implied lighting. But in the end, I think I did a decent job at making the wood look like wood and the metal look metally. So it wasn't that easy to make, but the end result was well worth it, and I honestly really like this gun. Also, I made a sprite for the bullet, but it's literally just 3 pixels, so there's not much to talk about. So yeah, here's some footage of me killing zombies with this new gun. And by the way, I completely forgot to mention that I also implemented recoil somewhere in my zombie phase, but I honestly can't remember when, but it looks really cool. Some people might say that this is now a finished project. We've got a cool looking gun, bullets are coming out of it, it can move, even though that doesn't make any sense at all. It points at the cursor, even though you can't actually see the cursor because I forgot to record it. But I decided this wasn't good enough. It didn't look cool enough, and I spent 6 hours, you heard me right, 6 hours working on this. Bullet shells flying out of the gun. Now, don't get me wrong, it looks awesome. It really brings the gun to the next level, but it was not worth 6 hours of extra work. But anyway, no point in complaining about the past. It has been done, it looks cool. Let's move on to the last thing we need to do, add sound. Because I don't know if you know this, but when you fire a gun, usually there's a big bang sound. And if that's not the case, it's most likely broken. And we haven't come this far to have a broken gun. So I searched for some free gun sounds on Google, downloaded the first thing I saw, broke off one of the shots and implemented it into the game. Here's how it sounds. This isn't the best sounding gun in the world, but at least it isn't broken, and that means we've successfully created a fully functioning gun. And I've completed my first step in becoming better at game design. Each devlog will be a new lesson for me to learn, from how to make a gun, to how to make a player, to how to make enemies, and much, much more. Hopefully this will mean that slowly but surely I'll get to a point I'm confident in making a game. I've practiced all the different parts and it's time to put it together. So if you are interested in going along for the ride, make sure to subscribe, like the video and comment something you'd want me to learn or would find interesting to see me try. With that said, I will see you in the next devlog, but until then, bye.